Welcome to the Paramedic Coach. We got a special guest on the YouTube channel here today. We got John Bielinski. So John Bielinski here is the founder of CME4LIFE. Started off after high school, actually went into the Marine Corps. After that, he's been a practicing PA now for over 23 years and has been in the education business for about 18 years. Now, how we met, I'll go into in a second, but John, welcome to the Paramedic Coach.
Hey, it's my pleasure to be here. And you know what? We have an interesting parallel in the sense that when I got out of the Marine Corps, I knew I wanted to do something with my life. I wasn't ready for college, okay? I was very hesitant to college, but the movie Backdraft was out. So I started watching Backdraft, and me and my buddies decided if we became a volunteer fireman, we'd be chick magnets. And that was very important. So I don't know if you got into EMS because you wanted to be a chick magnet. I mean, it grabbed me, and all of a sudden, so I don't know if that was your motivation, but it sure was my motivation. So I don't know if you can identify with that, but that's how I got into it. So it's really an honor to be on your show, man, and I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much for being out today. Really pumped to do this collab here. So I got my notes here. So if you guys see me looking down here, I got my notes here, all the questions I got for John. So how we actually met. So how did this all come about? Now, if you guys don't know, I'm going to put a link in the description down below to John's YouTube. It's a ton of gold on there, which I'm going to get to in a second. So how did I find John Bielinski? So I actually found John while I was in medic school back in 2012, 2013, 2011, around that time. And I was looking on YouTube, and I started seeing these videos with all these really cool mnemonics for stuff like chest pain, difficulty breathing, and as John calls them, which I stole the pearls, the pearls, you know. So there was a ton of quick tip videos that were like a minute long, had a ton of views on there. And I was like, wow, like this is like, I've never seen somebody break down like, you know, these advanced, like, you know, some may say, you know, like critical thinking of medicine and break it down so simply. And it helped me tremendously during my own ride time, like in school, and also helped the people that I train in the ambulance. And it's also like part of what we do here at the Paramedic Coach with these mnemonics. I'm actually made a video on a few of the mnemonics, and, you know, shout out to John. So that's how we first met. So John, I thought that would be pretty cool.
It's an honor, and it is so cool. Like my friend, I'll tell you that, you know, today's Good Friday, and I'm a spiritual guy. And, you know, to me, I believe God gave me this gift to simplify content. And it's like, I feel like I'm called to do it. And I almost feel that same passion from you. So to be able to take some content that has helped me save lives, and for you to pass it out and share it, and for you to be someone who goes, you see it. And for your watchers, the people who view you, to kind of say, wait a second, this can change how you practice, guys. This can change, you know, between your I can feel your passion, you wanting people to be better at their jobs. Guys, we're saving lives. You know, if you have a methodical approach to chest pain, guess what? You're going to be a better medic. So that's what it's all about, man. And I feel that's why I think I'm drawn to you, because I feel your passion for passing this on. So yeah, it's really cool. Very cool.
So what I've done, guys, I actually made a post over on my Facebook page. So some of the questions here are actually coming from you guys here. Some questions. Other ones here, I got some questions, some burning questions that I always want to ask John. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask. So first question, John. So anytime in, you know, any one of the things that I do, I always ask, you know, it's a real simple question to kind of start things off. In your words, who is John Bielinski?
I believe I'm a grinder. We all have our own story. Like, we all have a story. Okay. And when I look at my background, I didn't graduate high school on time because my grades were so bad. And I was a guy who had we all have a story, and I'm nothing special, but I had some struggles growing up, and I had some struggles learning in high school. I felt stupid in high school. And in the Marines, you know, I went in the Marines almost wanting to prove something. And throughout my whole entrepreneurial journey, my journey as a PA, I always felt like I was a grinder, someone who almost had something to prove. I still feel like I got something to prove, whether it's a healthy motivation now to me or to others. So I would say, if you ask who I am, I'm a grinder. That's who I am.
When I got out of high school too, it was the same thing for me. Like, I saw like the traditional like route that everyone was going down, and I was like, I didn't know where I wanted to go, but I just felt that the same way. I wanted to really sink my teeth into something. And for me, when I was 19, that was EMS. And I knew that, like 2 weeks into it, I was telling you earlier, when I saw that first like EMS, EMSI instructor, paramedic talk, I was like, okay, I want to be that guy, like right there. Like, that's what I need to do. Like, I want to get to that level. And I just went all in on it. And I felt the same way, like, I wanted to prove these, people or whatever wrong as well. I felt the same kind of feelings. What kind of person do you think is a good fit for a career in medicine?
Before I answer that, let me just talk to you about fuel. What drives you? What drives a person? And I can speak from my experience. And I've had the privilege of teaching thousands of people at conferences, schools, precepting students. So I do feel like I have a good feel for a really good clinician and someone who may be struggling, but I can speak also to myself. And I'd ask anybody who's listening, what is your fuel? Is it like coal, gasoline? Like if you look at gas, it's hot. It can make you go very fast, but it's dirty. And quite frankly, that's ego. Ego is a dirty fuel. It was very fast for me, and I have a lot of ego. I had a lot of ego. There's another fuel that's more like wind and sun and solar power. That's a natural fuel, and that's much more of an altruistic fuel of I want to serve others. Now, listen, my friend, I've been in EMS, okay, doing volunteer and paid. And as a PA who's worked in my capacity, I work with a lot of docs. The ego is so pathologic in medicine, pathologic in EMS.
Yep.
A lot of people who get into it because they want to be the man, they want to be the woman. And dude, I'm no better than this, okay? You talked about, you getting attached to a paramedic instructor. Quite frankly, I remember the movie Malice, and the Malice was about a cardiothoracic surgeon who let his ego get the best of him. And at one point he came into a room and he said, when someone's in a car accident and their daughter's in the operating room and the parents are praying that their daughter's going to be okay, they're praying to me. And all of a sudden I'm like, that degree of responsibility. So that's a long way of saying, my friend, check your motives. Why are you getting into this? Are you getting into it for ego, or are you getting into it to help people? I'm not saying ego can't help people. Like, I'm not saying you can't use that to serve the greater good, but it's dirty. It'll leave residue on you, and it'll come out in the wash. So the best clinicians are the ones that have the self-awareness to say, we all have some ego, we all have a little bit of altruism, but where's your weight? And if you're weighted on ego, you're going to treat people poorly. You're going to use your position to, like, if you're a paramedic and you're an ego-based paramedic, you're going to treat the EMS, the basics, like shit. You know what I'm talking about. I've seen this with PAs,
Yep.
So I would give anybody advice to look at your fuel. And if you really want to serve others, medicine is fantastic. If you're an ego-based guy or gal, you get more lawsuits. People don't want to work with you. You're a pain in the ass. So that would be what I would, a very honest way to challenge you guys to look at yourself and answer that question personally.
And there's a lot of people too, actually, I put out a question in a huge Facebook group of EMS providers. I asked a simple question. I said, what makes a great partner? And one of the things, I made a video on it, I think it was number 3 or 4 on my list, people kept saying mutual respect, mutual respect, mutual respect. That was one of the things that they were getting at. And I remember seeing that too, so yeah, I definitely agree. Now here's, this question, guys, is 100% from me. I got to know this. So, John, how did you start coming up with these mnemonics?
I know I have some degree of dyslexia where I will look at certain things and certain things. Like I cannot comprehend dates and times. If you said, hey, John, next Friday at 4:00, I'm going to be, I can't, my brain doesn't do that. I have to look at a calendar. Or if you talk about time zones, I'm flying back 3 time zones to California and then I'm jumping on a flight. I can't, my mind gets blown. But all of a sudden my mind sees things in pictures and colors and music. Just do. So first and foremost, I'll tell you, my friend, Evan, I believe my ability to teach is God-given. I believe God just gave me this, like, I'll take something and, like just this morning, I was kind of on with a spiritual group and, this just came up this morning. So all of a sudden we were talking about some of the principles to engage in this spirituality. And this was a mnemonic that I came up with this morning. Shoga. So surrender, humility, obedience, willing, gratitude, acceptance. So I can tell you that when I look at something and I go, I got to remember this. So then the question becomes, how do you remember it? Too many people just like, okay, I'll just remember this. No. A good person, an educator or someone who really wants to be at a high level, you have to use tools to help you remember. There are boatloads of mnemonics out there. There's boatloads of well-practiced tools to teach you how to learn, okay? And there's a book called Moonwalking with Einstein. Moonwalking with Einstein. It was about a writer who covered the memory championships in the United States. He just reported on them, then he goes, wait a second, maybe I could learn this. Well, the next year, he spent all year training. He won the memory championship in the United States the next year. And it talks about all these different kinds of mnemonics. So I do believe that I have a talent for doing it, that just because of my dyslexia, which in the past I thought was a huge liability, has become a gift, but I've also honed it. And I could give you a boatload of ways to do it. You know, I actually had a memory coach from Costa Rica that I'd go online and meet with. So for me, I will look at, like with the Papa and the Horde mnemonic. First and foremost, Evan, I'm going to confess something to you.
Yeah.
So if you guys haven't seen this before, if Evan hasn't shared this with you,
yeah.
You have 5 fingers on your right hand, 5 fingers on your left hand. So the 5 causes of chest pain on the right hand, 5 causes of shortness of breath on the left hand. And there's no exceptions to it. There's 5 causes of chest pain. And the mnemonic is, who's your Papa? P-A-P-P-A. It's pericarditis, acute coronary syndrome, pneumothorax, PE, and aneurysm, a thoracic dissection. There's 5 causes of pulmonary symptoms. HORID, H-O-R, heart, CHF, obstruction, reactive airway disease, infection, or death from a PE. Okay? Evan, I'm not joking. When I tell you, when I first spelled those words out, I thought they were spelled right. I thought Papa was P-A-P-P-A. My father's like, boy, you didn't spell that right. Papa's P-A-P-A. I thought I spelled horrid right. I thought H-O-R-I-D was how you spelled horrid. And all of a sudden I realized it's not in the dictionary. And I realized, okay, well, the dictionary clearly spelled it wrong. Right. It turned out to be a gift. But then again, I've also refined the gift. And if you want to refine the gift, 2 things I'll tell you to do is, number 1, read the book Moonwalking with Einstein. And the second thing is, there's a Dale Carnegie course about how to influence other people, how to have higher emotional intelligence. And one of the tools in that course is memory, to teach people memory tricks. And my friend, I have used the content from that course in my lectures my whole life.
Look at the landscape of all that and how it can, you just kind of bring that into EMS to kind of share the stories on it too. Is I remember being actually in my ride time, having a chest pain patient, and I remember, you know, so I'm sitting on the bench seat. Here's the patient. They got chest pain. You know, they were stable. And then the paramedic and instructor that I was with, you know, I was a paramedic student in my ride time, and they were like, "Hey, Evan, so like, what do you think's going on with the patient?" And I didn't say the mnemonic out loud, but I knew it. So this is how I work. This is how I work the patients up. That's how I work them up. And so I would go. I say, okay. Well, first we got to look for pericarditis. Then we got to look for ACS. We can't miss these. We're going to get burned, which is what we're going to get to in a second here, which is the next thing, right? Yeah. And then I start looking for, you know, for signs of pneumothorax or P or aneurysm, and you go through all that. And the thing is, after you go through those mnemonics, like for the chest pain, for example, let's say it's chest pain and diff breathing. You can do them both. They work. If it's not one of these things, the patient's probably okay. At that point, it's going to be just routine ALS care and go to the hospital. Another big thing that I learned from you, John, was documentation and a video that you did years ago about heuristics.
Heuristics, guys, if you're watching this video, you have to understand that, you know, Evan's an entrepreneur, okay? I'm an entrepreneur. And one of the big things about entrepreneur is, you know, there's times that you got to work in your business. So like Evan's right now working, making a video. You know, I did a webcast all week. So bottom line is I'm working in the business, but there's other times you have to step outside of your business and work on your business. So an entrepreneur's got to spend time, where are we going? What's the big picture like? So a good entrepreneur, if you're just work in the business, you're not really an entrepreneur, you're a manager. If you're an entrepreneur and an owner, you work on the business. So listen, what I'm going to say is going to be kind of deep and profound. if you want to be an optimal thinker, you got to work on your thinking. You got to step back and say, how am I thinking? Is my thinking potentially flawed? Okay. You have to examine the lens in which you view the world. So if every time you just think what you think is right, you're very biased. Okay. I could be wrong. Evan went into a call, and that particular heuristic is a mental shortcut. And guys, you've been a medic for a while. No, you've been a human for a while. You have all these shortcuts. As medics, you do it too. You just have shortcuts, right? So listen, Daniel Kahneman, he wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. I don't recommend reading this book, okay? But Thinking Fast and Slow, he won the Nobel Prize for his work in this book. And I say I don't recommend reading because it's a really hard read. But he talks about, just listen, this is very, very, very important. We have two systems of thinking, a system 1 and a system 2. System 1 thinking is lazy thinking, it's passive thinking, it's habits, it's habitual. Our mind wants to stay in system 1, okay? Because it doesn't take any effort. System 2 is very, very intentional, okay? It's like if I asked you to multiply 13 times 17 quickly, you'd have to go to system 2, okay? System 2 is where you become incredibly deliberate and you're very focused. Your mind fights that because it takes a lot of energy. You're driving down the street, you're in system 1, you're cruising, someone jumps into your lane, you hit the brakes, you're immediately pissed off because you had to go into system 2 real quick. Listen to me, a good medic will not be afraid to make the jump. You might see something that looks fine, everything's fine, but something's not right in this one. Something's not right. That something's not right has got to switch you to system 2 and go, I got to open my mind. I got to take off their hat. Something's not right. So a heuristic is a mental shortcut, like anchoring. Anchoring is what Evan was talking about. This guy's a drunk. A drunk. If you're just a drunk, I know how to handle a drunk. I've handled those thousands of times. I can stay in system 1 for a drunk. I don't have to advancedly think. The really good clinician's going to go, the really good paramedic, nurse, doctor, PA, nurse practitioner is going to go, something's not right here. Let me just explore a little deeper. I hope you can hear that, guys. Don't be afraid to pause and say, something's not right. Let me look at this. You know, deja vu is seeing something for the first time and feeling like, oh, wow, I've been here before. Vu jadé is seeing something you've seen time and time again, but looking at it fresh. I hope you can hear me on this. This is where you're going to make the most brilliant catches of your paramedic life, is by keeping an open mind and not missing that little subtle thing. And the chance is, if you miss it, you're going to tell the triage nurse at the hospital and the ER, and guess what? She's going to document that note, or he is. Next thing you know, the doc is going to get your bias. And that's what happened in that case, Evan, that you read about is, oh, this guy's just a drunk. Oh, told the nurse, oh, he's just a drunk. Oh, that went in the triage note. And he sat in the ER for a long time before someone realized he was a subdural.
Well, as far as like the mindset and kind of like, you know, what they might want to do before school or stuff like that to get prepared for PA school, what would be your recommendations for a paramedic, the PA outlook?
First thing I would say is, I know medics are very, very good algorithmic thinkers, and this could get you into some trouble in PA school. Okay, there is literature that veterans who come into PA school struggle on the exam because they start, when you're stressed out, you you go back to what you were trained at. So the first thing I would say is really come with a lot of humility. Okay, that would be the first thing I would say. Getting into PA school is very, very difficult. Now, one of the things, Evan, that you and I talked about, which I really loved. So, you know, your paramedic coach business, and I could hear your passion for and how it worked for you. So people who are getting ready for paramedic school, or if you're getting ready to go in the Navy as a corpsman or as an Army medic, you want to prepare yourself. Evan, I know you got a program that helps people prepare that way. So bottom line is, guys, you don't ever want to hear something for the first time with a bunch of other students. So if you're in a competitive learning environment, you don't want to hear about AFib for the first time where everybody else, you want to have an understanding of it before you walk in the room. And I know, Evan, that's what you do. You prepare people before they walk in the room. So anybody who's going into medical school, EMT school, and especially if you're going in the military, in the medical branch, you want to get a program that will help prepare you in whatever that is, whether it's YouTube videos, whether it's a book, or whether it's the Paramedic Coach program. So my friend, I've done the same thing. People going into PA school, you don't want to learn about renal functions with everybody else because you're going to be shell-shocked. I have a video on YouTube called the Pre-PA Kickstart. And it's a long program, but we put 45 minutes of it out for free. Let me teach you a bunch of pearls that you need to know before you walk in. So you do not want to walk in and be on even keel with everybody else. Prep appropriately. And a huge thing is medical terminology. You better know your medical terminology. Because if I said cholecystectomy, you better know, it's taking your gallbladder out. No, gallbladder out. But if you have to go, oh shit, wait. If you are thinking that way and you're that slow with interpreting the medical language, you're going to be way behind in classes. So you have to basically speak medical terminology as a second language. There are so many diseases that you'll know what the disease is if you know the medical language. If you know, polymyositis. Okay, many muscles are inflamed. Okay, guess what? I have a pretty good idea of what their disease is. So I would say, again, just like what you do, my friend, prep before you get into PA school with whatever way that is. I like what, Evan, you said. You said that before medical school, you studied pharmacology and cardiology. Smart, man, very smart. Before PA school, you want fundamental principles like pharmacology, radiology, EKG interpretation. I've taught this at PA schools for a long time, so that's why I came up with the pre-PA Kickstart. So prep yourself before you go in and know your medical terminology.
I know we're going to talk about your upcoming Black Belt EKG course. By the way, I'm going to be there, so cool. I'm pumped to be there for that. So, with that being said, what actually started you down the pathway of starting like CME4LIFE? And what was lacking as far as CME that said, you know what? I'm gonna go all in on this.
One of the things that you said, and I'll almost copy exactly what you said. I remember when I was in PA school and I saw the guy coming teaching ACLS. I'm like, I want to be an ACLS instructor. Like, I want to teach this. And so I started teaching ACLS, and I loved it. And I loved looking at the reviews. I love people saying, "Oh, John made this really easy." Oh, I kind of got that ego, right? I wanted that ego field. Well, then an opportunity opened up to teach at PA schools, so teaching lab medicine, EKG, and radiology. And I refined the teaching. Too many instructors are like, here's the content. They don't work on the delivery. They don't work on how well the people understand it. Here's the content. It's your job to figure out how to remember it. Well, that was very different than what I did. Okay, so then I started lecturing at national conferences with rave reviews. Hey, I became a keynote speaker at these really big conferences, and that's what made me say, there was one state organization said, hey, we want to film your emergency medicine course and sell it, and we'll give you, a third of the profits, something like that. And I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty good. But then we want copyright of all your mnemonics. And I'm like, I'm not giving a copyright. Like, all the mnemonics that I have, they're copywritten. Like, I have them submitted for copyright. So if someone, you have my permission to use this stuff, but if someone tried to use Who's Your Papa in that creative way to teach chest pain in a textbook, that is infringing on copyright. So they wanted copyright to literally scores of mnemonics that'll make medicine easy. So I'm like, no. So I started this business. There's not enough practical education out there. There's not enough practical content. Too much administrative academic stuff. And you have too many instructors that will read you slides. You got it? Okay, I read you the slide. You got it. Not enough practical content. And I was really privileged, how I worked. If you said, John, how many codes have you run? Evan, I'd say hundreds. I have no idea how many codes I've run. I know that when shit hits the fan and we had a really bad code or multi-casualty accident, I loved it when the smoke would clear and the senior nurse would go, man, I'm glad you're on for that one. Okay. Well, I loved the fact that I was battle tested and then I could share it with others. So, but practical content, practical. What's practical application? So That's what it is. I think there's a gap between, if you ever saw the movie The Guardian, Kevin Costner, Coast Guard movie, is a really good movie. And Kevin Costner was this rock star Coast Guard rescue swimmer. He had an injury, so he had to go back into school. And he basically said there's a gap between what actually happens out there and what we teach in the classroom. I want to close that gap. And that's been my calling, is to close the gap.
When I first started the paramedic coach, that was a similar thing that I used, like that gap inside EMS education. There's so many EMTs like going off onto the road. Then, for example, let's say they come across a med list, and let's say the patient overdosed on this med, or the patient hasn't taken this med, or just got out of dialysis and they're on these meds, and they have this 15 spot med list. They have no idea the meds because no one taught them. So then you have to learn on the job. Well, who's going to teach you on the job? Maybe if you're lucky, you find a good partner. But maybe you don't. Then that's how people kept coming over to me, and that's how for my paramedic coach, that's how for me it all started too. So wrapping up here, mainly my audience for the most part is going to be people that are EMS, EMT, and paramedic students that are either just getting ready for EMT school or paramedic school. Maybe they're getting forward to your boards. With everything that you know about emergency medicine and where they're at right now, what would be like some of your biggest tips that you can give them as far as passing school?
How to survive through school and move through school. Again, I'm going to say something I said earlier. Just know your why. Why you're doing this, okay? Is it a stepping stone where you're moving? Understand that there are 6 drivers for success in a vocation. And 3 of them are good and 3 of them are bad. So the first 3 are play, purpose, and potential. Play, if you're having fun doing what you're doing, you're going to be successful. Purpose, if you feel like you're really serving a deeper need, a greater purpose, you're gonna be driven. And potential. So like if you're going through medic school, EMT school because you want to go to a higher level in medicine, okay, this is going to build that potential. When it comes to school, ladies and gentlemen, and your test, there are a lot of study resources out there to know your test. So always make sure, like if you're studying for your paramedic boards, there are lots of different ways to make sure you know what you're going to do before you walk in on day, like for the test. I highly discourage studying for a test by doing questions, okay? Doing just study questions is not a good way to learn, okay? I can preach that. Questions are an assessment tool. They're not a study tactic. So don't think studying for a paramedic exam is about doing a bunch of questions. It won't let you grow. It's like spinning your tires in the snow. You're working, but you're not smart, guys. Be very careful about that. My experiences have disciplined study plans, and that means, I can only study for about 2 hours at a time before I can't study anymore. Too many people contact me and they say, oh, I'm going to study 6 hours a day for my PA boards. I'm like, no, you're not. You're not. That's like saying I'm going to work out 6 hours a day. That's impossible. A good 2 hours a day is fine, but I know that if I study for about an hour and a half and then take a break and then come back at it, I could do that a couple times a day. Have a disciplined study plan. If you have a good study group, studying groups will allow you to study longer periods of time before fatigue. And I don't know how well this applies to EMS, but I'm going to throw it at you. You do with this what you will. When I teach people about medicine as a PA, I stress 4 questions. And if you think about every single disease and you can answer what I call the questions of mastery, there's 4 questions to know if you master a disease. The first one is, what's wrong? What's the pathophysiology? So if I said someone had hyperventilation syndrome, what's the pathophysiology of that? Like, why does someone get a vasovagal syncope? Why does it happen in the body? Number 2 is, how do they present? How are they going to show up? Why are they calling EMS? Number 3 is, how do you diagnose it? Number 4 is, what do you do with it? How do you fix it? So when you study disease, I recommend the questions of mastery. It's a paradigm. Too many students become familiar with the disease, but they don't know it. The questions of mastery is a way to know if you know it.
And I think you've talked about this too. Most students fail not because they haven't, tried enough questions, because they don't know the core concepts. Right. And core concepts are tripping them up. So I know for PA students, you talked about, hey, if you don't know what meds treat CHF and the process of CHF and what they're going to look like, there's no way you're going to be able to answer a question on that. Yeah, tell us about the upcoming event you got going on with the the EKG Black Belt program, go through the whole thing. I'm super pumped for it, man. I'm excited. So I will be there. And if you guys want to join me and John on that, I'll put a link in the description down below. Come check it out.
I tell you, this is funny, man. It was maybe 2 years ago. I'm flying back from somewhere. My CEO's on an airplane. We're coming back from some lecture gig, and someone becomes unresponsive on the airplane. And I've handled 6 in-flight emergencies. But this person, I'm managing her. She was poorly responsive. She kind of looked sick. She didn't speak English, so there was a language barrier. And the bottom line is I determined that she probably wasn't sick. This was probably vasovagal versus anxiety. But nevertheless, I managed her until I got to the Buffalo airport, and I landed, and I helped her walk off with the medics. And as soon as I got off the plane, the one medic's staring at me. And he goes, I was just watching your videos. And it was like very humbling. Well, the thing is, I know that a lot of the content that I've used and teach equates to medics. Okay, a lot of the stuff. And if you do 12 EKGs, here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. You want to be respected as a medic. You want docs to look at you and say, this guy knows his stuff. This guy, again, I don't want to know PA's knowledge. I want to have advanced knowledge so doctors come to me and say, wow, I respect you like a peer. And as a medic, you want that too. I have what's called the Black Belt EKG program. And my experience with teaching EKGs is some people are really, I'm sure Evan's really solid at it, okay? So when I teach an audience, I'll have this side over here. They don't even know what a P wave is. This people over here are like Evan, really solid at it. So I came up with this Black Belt program that is just like earning a Black Belt in martial arts. You start knowing nothing, and at Black Belt, you're ready to go. So next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're doing the Black Belt EKG program, which is going to basically, by the time you have Black Belt, you're going to be like, I know enough to earn the respect of the doc. If I call them and say, listen, I get inferior wall STEMI. And it's not because you think it is, it's because you know it is. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we have a program. If you're EMS and you are interested in joining, please sign at a student rate. Okay, it's a discounted rate to come on. If you embrace this program, by the time you get your Black Belt, you will be the guy or the girl teaching your colleagues EKGs. And it's fun. Each EKG is a riddle. So I'd encourage people to jump on board.
I love it. Hey guys, I'll be there as well. So look forward to that. So again, down in the description to join that. And so John, to wrap up, any final closing thoughts here for our audience?
I'll give you a profound thought, especially in the light of the COVID-19 virus right now. And this was a Daniel Kahneman's quote. Again, he's the most profound thinker I've ever heard. He said an unbiased appreciation for uncertainty is the cornerstone of rationality. I'm going to say it again. An unbiased appreciation for uncertainty is the cornerstone of rationality, which basically means an unbiased appreciation, which means I can't have prejudices. I have to understand that there's uncertainty in the world. There's uncertainty in EMS calls. I mean, I know what we're asking of you guys. I'll never forget being on the floor, having a lady who had smoke inhalation. I'm in a hospital, right? And she's circling the drain. I'm watching her guppy breathe. And I'm like, dude, she's going to code. She's going to code. She's going to code any minute. She's going to code. What am I going to do? Oh, I'll call code blue. I call code blue and everybody rushes in. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Oh my gosh, that was scary. And then I think about you EMS guys, gals. You're the code blue. You know that you are it. And the respect that I have for you guys, but to also say an unbiased appreciation for uncertainties. So ladies and gentlemen, you have to keep an open mind. You have to keep an open mind. And you need to if you act ego driven, you have to catch yourself and realize that's going to keep you very limited. So that'd be my final thought, my friend.
Awesome. I love it.
Cool.
Hey, thanks for being on the program. And guys, we'll see you next time. All the links we talked about are going to be down in the subscription. Make sure to subscribe to the channel here and John's channel as well. And guys, see you next time.